Hello, everyone, and welcome to No Coast Defenders. As usual, the Dastardly duo here, breaking down episode 5 of Hawkeye, the second to last episode, maybe of the series, maybe of the season. We'll probably find out later this week the answer to that question. First, any comic book media related news?
Not at the moment, just getting excited for Peacemaker to start in January. So it's though the excitement's everybody's fawning over Marvel with Spider-Man, Hawkeye, all that stuff. We're about to finally get some good stuff out of Warner Brothers there. So really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, with on a related note, just because it's Warner Brothers, I don't know if you saw, but they announced that the Blue Beetle movie in 2023, which was going to be an HBO at Max, is now going to theaters. They did not say whether or not it was going to be a dual release,
right?
But it is definitely getting a theater release, which it was not. So hopefully, as Batgirls or Batwoman, I don't remember which one it's going to be.
I thought Batwoman because they have the new series coming out too, which is going to be like kind of her team. Based on what I'm seeing, I didn't actually know about the Blue Beetle until somebody messaged me and said, "Hey, do you got any Blue Beetle comics?" Then I quickly Googled what's going on, and there we were.
Yeah. Hopefully that bodes good things for the Jamie Reyes Blue Beetle character. Not that I don't want to see like the diverse version of Blue Beetle, but I love Ted Core, so hopefully there's a Ted Core appearance. But I wouldn't be surprised if they don't focus on Ted Cord. I know the comics don't talk about him a lot, whether dead or alive in the continuum. He's not brought up too often, but I think he's barely mentioned in the animated series. So,
yeah, and I was thumbing through some issues today, and I have no idea what the hell they're going to do with this movie, which kind of excites me, to be honest, because it can go in any direction, but you know, Blue Beetle is a lot like Darkhawk was in the Marvel comics, where like somehow everybody makes an appearance in those books, and there's so much to be had there, so much fun that could be derived from that. So it really doesn't matter which direction they go in, as long as they use that connectedness and just fun that you can have from that whole series.
Yeah, it'll be really, really interesting, especially with the upcoming Static movie.
Mm-hmm.
If they're just gonna backdoor us into a Teen Titans,
right?
We'll see. I don't know that we needed Teen Titans, since the Titans series on HBO Max is well reviewed, and everyone loved the Teen Titans series on Cartoon Network. So,
oh yeah,
and I think there's a younger generation that loves the Teen Titans Go. It's a little bit too much for me, but there's a giant fan base there, so it's not the worst idea to make a movie. But I don't know that they need it either.
I think going with the Titans arc would work really well, and I think it might actually encourage some new readers too, because that's some really accessible material there. It's also available in trade. So,
well, and especially the way they're setting it up, it would be closer to the current comic book run, because it feels like every live action animated Titans kind of reboots from the early Titans, and that's the run. That is the run. But it would make sense, especially to tie in with your comic books, that is more current, up-to-date characters. So, but we'll see where that goes. That's really all I saw. I mean, obviously the Peacemaker trailers have been fun, and then I saw this bit of news and got excited for Jamie Reyes, because who doesn't get excited for a fictional character they're barely connected to?
I'm all in.
All right, so let's get into it, and we will talk Hawkeye episode 5. Your impressions of the episode, Dan?
Just, I'm hooked, man. I don't even know how else to describe it. You know, it's as I said, this is the first series where I've just taken what they give me. So I'm not, I mean, we knew Kingpin was coming, you know, not to jump to the end, but I think the way in which it was revealed, the red herring you've been speaking about, and how he may take a turn and actually end up being on Kate's side while she battles her mother, you know. And the thing that I've really found interesting is, you know, Kingpin's the big guy. With everything Hawkeye has seen, he's somehow scared of this guy. And so that makes me excited about not just this series, but we know She-Hulk's going to be connected in some way. Daredevil becomes a part of it. And so this bigger universe where he is the big bad in many ways, Really just has me excited about what's to come, especially with the street level stuff, because I've found that I connect much more to that on the screen than I do the other stuff. Whereas in the comics, I'm more of the celestial being, cosmic universe kind of fan as opposed to street level stuff. So I don't know why that is for me, but I'm really excited about what's to come.
Yeah, this episode was pretty fantastic. And I know I'd asked you, I think, after the second episode, if they could ever pull off teasing not having Kingpin appear.
Mhm.
And I'm glad they didn't. I heard people complain about the way he was revealed, but I thought it was perfect for this series.
Yeah, I don't know what they want or what they expected.
And I also saw some people mistake Yelena sending the picture to Kate as the end of her and Clint's issues, which I thought was just a silly interpretation of that reading.
That was a courtesy picture. That was not a I'm done with your friend picture.
Yeah, exactly. And who knows, maybe not even a Curtis picture, but Yelena doesn't have any background on Eleanor and doesn't know. The conversation was great between Kate and Yelena, but she doesn't have the background of how deep Kate's affection for Clint is. So it almost felt like she was, if anything, Yelena might not even know who Hawkeye is. Like she is a widow who was killing who she was like programmed to kill. So she might not know how big a deal Hawkeye is. And that just might be a deal with Kate. Like, I told you didn't know this man. Even your mother wants him dead. Could have been that courtesy. Like,
yeah, I feel like the Elena is twofold because I feel like she would know everything up on him, especially because that's what she's trained to. You know, she demonstrated that when she's talking to Kate about like address, family members, all that kind of stuff. So if Clint's her target, she should know all of that. And I know that she's still fresh with us, but like the intelligence that Natasha always had in terms of knowing exactly what's going on, the main players, all that stuff, I feel like she would have the same, if not more now. And so I don't know if that was just a careless angle or some, you know, we'll see it transpire more, but you know, the badassery doesn't start and then magically stop when it comes to her relation to characters. So though I don't know if she knows the Kingpin angle, she was hired by somebody, and I feel like she would investigate who that person is that's hiring her too, you know, like, you know, keep your friend, the enemies and friends kind of thing. So I don't know. I'm curious to see where it goes because it's just for her to have surprises just puzzles me a bit.
I would agree with you in a normal situation, but since she was presented this assignment just as this is the man who killed your sister, I don't think she thought anything more of it. Like the woman she is working for and her, like the person who hires her as her hires as the contact said, "Hey, I got you an assignment you're going to love because this guy killed your sister." And she thought nothing more of it. Like Val is her lifeline to this job. So I can understand her just taking the job and not thinking anything more of it in this case, because emotions are going to play. Like this is her family. Like the whole like live out your Sex and the City fantasies with Natasha thing, I think holds true in this because that's what she wanted to do. Like, so I think she might be clouded here. And I think you could tell just when near the end when Kate says she claims she's Natasha's sister, and the look on Barton's face when he's like, Yelena, like you can tell he knows how big this is. And like you can register in his face that, oh yeah, this just got worse because of how personal it is, and she's not going to know.
Yeah,
So I think, yeah, it just seems like this one going in blind is probably the only hit it would make sense for Elena to go in blind for.
I feel like we're about to get a quick turn on her end too. So that's I mean, things do move rather quickly with this show. So I don't question their judgment on it. But I feel like we're gonna have a pretty quick turn with her.
Yes. Well, and I think you'd already mentioned the Jack thing, like it could be a turn in his case. And the other person that I feel like is gonna turn this next episode and kind of hinted at is Maya. Like we saw with Echo.
Yeah.
She would have had 30 more seconds, she would have killed Barton. But it just definitely felt like after her conversation with Kazi, like it was hitting her what's going on. And this is another one that I think, you know me, I'm a very much like listen to the conversation, pay attention to the details in the conversation. And he never once says, he was there as Ronin. He says, I was tipped off by someone within the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw people like take that as an admittance of he was the Ronin that killed her father. And I didn't take that at all. I thought, oh, he was there for a setup is why he was there. And he was not in that costume. The other possibility is that maybe it was him and like he was attacked with the after the tip off, but he was definitely like, we know now he was set up. And it feels like Echo's piecing together and will piece together, let's say halfway through this episode, who the real villain is and what happened with her father. So it could end up being like the Tracksuit Mafia versus the Hawkeyes, Echo, Swordsman, and a Black Widow. So, I mean, they couldn't take out just Clint, so it'll be interesting to see how that works. But
you know what's funny is when we were watching the last episode, so talk about the Tracksuit Mafia, and so he just goes, where do they all keep coming from? But I will say that my favorite touch featuring them was the Christmas Time in Hollis, because that is the only Christmas song I enjoy. And so having that in this episode just was a very fun moment for me.
Well, and then the whole like tracksuit OGs conversation, and then we don't look like the Royal Tenenbaums. Yes, we look like that. That whole bit was really such a good runner to set up like the arrow going through the windshield.
Oh yeah,
just so good. There's always a lot of small things, but there's really a lot of small things I thought, particularly with Haley Steinfeld's performance in this. The shift in demeanor when she's talking to Elena versus when she's talking to Clint Martin. Like she kind of jokes because that's her nervous, but it was like a nervous nature, fear for my life joke instead of a I'm meeting my hero nervous joke. And she wasn't smiling. She was very, very dour. But then the next morning when she's getting out of bed and she struggles to get out of bed, like she touches her leg, she's feeling her pain. And even though she was not as in the fight as Clint was to get beat up, she hasn't been as beat up as much as Clint in this episode or in this series. You can tell she's in pain. And and I thought that was a good touch for her to then look at the little bow, her first bow, and start calling him again. And that was the thing. Like, I think she had to really start to feel the pain of what's going on. And you can hear it when her conversation with Elena, where about you deal with collateral damage, like you make sacrifices. And then she's in pain the next morning. Her no longer future stepfather was arrested, but all she has to do is call Clint and Tush can't anymore. And then she searches him out and realistically saves his life. So it was just a very good moment for her. I mean, the entire Kate Elena stuff. Apparently, I was reading from the directors, they did a lot of like behind the scenes stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Most of that scene was fairly improvised. Like
it wasn't a very powerful scene.
It wasn't originally supposed to be hot sauce on the table, but when looking for something, because they knew Kate was going to throw something, and then when they found the bottle of hot sauce, Yelena, or well, I guess Florence Pugh said that was going to be it. They were looking for forks on the set, and there weren't, and that was that whole exchange about one fork, one person, completely ad-libbed with the two of them. So that entire scene, even down to Yelena's wardrobe, like Florence Pugh helped pick that out. The fur coat she's wearing when she's like undercover, like trailing Eleanor, that was originally supposed to be in that scene, and they decided she would not wear that to that scene. So Florence Pugh really, really was hands-on in the character in this, and I thought the better for the series for it. It just felt more organic, I think, that way than.
You know what's weird is I really hated that accent in Black Widow, but she's really honed in on it, and it really just works in this series. It just adds. She's such a badass character, and even this innocent pot of mac and cheese is not just an innocent pot of mac and cheese, and it's. I don't know. So I watched that episode 3 times, and then it's just that scene gets better each time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of small things that I can't believe were ad-libbed, but I think was definitely in the script more or less. Is the calling her Kate Bishop every line until Kate calls her out on it, and then it's dropped for the rest of the conversation until she drops out the window, and then she uses it again. Like, I thought that was very brilliant and deliberate for them to drop it, but then for her to at the end remind her that this is a serious thing.
Yeah, I know your government
Just
name. I know your family's government names.
yeah, it's just so good. I think the other important part of this was the conversation with Laura in this episode when he basically asked her to go full Ronin,
Yep.
and her response, "If you never need to ask permission for me, I know more than anyone." And last week I was debating, is she a former agent? Is she a former villain that's reformed? And it just felt between that and how worried Clinton Barton is about Kingpin. I heard this pointed out a lot, like, why is Clinton Barton so worried about Kingpin? He's fought Thanos. Like, yes, but maybe because his wife worked for Kingpin and he's got a hit on her. Like, that's
Well,
more
he's also been
important
able to
him.
hide his family this entire time until now.
Yeah. And I think the line, "We're so far away," was, and he's like, "You can never be far enough." Like, that is telling because yes, Kingpin's not a galactic world conqueror from another planet, but he's a very powerful man with friends who are not afraid to do
Right.
whatever they need for no amount of money. And for just someone who's retired from a life onto a farm with her kids, yeah, she is more touchable than any of the Avengers, and her life means more to Clint than his own does. So it would make sense to be that afraid of Kingpin if that is the case.
Yeah.
Like, so it just felt really, really telling of that conversation.
And I'm honestly wondering, Hawkeye season 2 is being rumored hard. I wouldn't be surprised. There's a lot more story to be told, but I'm wondering if this, rather than a Hawkeye season 2 fleshing all that out, if that's going to also trickle into the Echo stuff because of her connectivity to Kingpin as well, which may explore that too. So they may not necessarily even need a second season for Hawkeye if they go that route. So I'm curious to see which way that develops.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I keep seeing is, why is Cardellini cast in this role to just sit on the farm? Like, that's one of the reasons people are leaning that she's going to be more. But it's always kind of hilarious because every time they make that argument and they say, not that there's anything wrong with a mother on a farm. And I was like, we get it. We get what you're trying to say. You don't need to add that preface. But I guess it's nice that is, as soon as someone says something like that, they do realize, like, oh shit, I just shamed stay-at-home moms.
This just isn't the time to have a stay-at-home mom on the farm.
Yeah.
Greater purpose kind of thing.
Yeah. And I do think that if what she was doing was all Linda Cardellini did, like, good for you for casting someone so fucking wonderful for such a role.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to see more because it kind of fleshes out more of Clint Barton. So it'll be really, really interesting. I'm curious if whether everyone just ends up on the farm at the end.
I had thought about that, and I really don't want that.
Well, I don't want the fight at the end, but like, Kate is losing her family in this.
I know. It's just
Does
so
she
much trauma
retreat
for
to
the
the
kids.
farm with them? Yeah.
I just think about all the shit that the kids have been through already, and it's thinking of them being on the run or having to maintain the farm, all that kind of crap. So yeah, I don't know. It's because I kind of had the same thought. I'm like, I really hope not, just for the kids' sake.
Yeah. Although for me, I thought, oh, would it be fun to see Kate training his daughter? Like in the beginning of even if they don't end this one, like if there's a season 2 that focuses more on Kate Bishop, like, do we start it with her visiting the farm, training his daughter while also getting advice from Clint and Laura? Like, I think that might be a better way to start a second season than end a third season.
Yeah. I actually was thinking, like, for a second season, it was actually called Hawkeye, Kate Bishop. I would actually really enjoy that. But yeah, I don't know. His family plays a huge role in this, much bigger than what we've seen. It's just, I know that the finale is 59 minutes, so they've got time to really flesh stuff out. I just don't know what I want to see happen. I don't know what's gonna happen, or even if this teaser of Kingpin was just that. It's just a teaser, and he's really not as big a deal in the finale. We just now know of him.
Which that could be it. I think there'd be some disappointment if that was what that end result was. I feel like he's got to be at least in a scene in this final
scene. Charlie Cox was just confirmed as having a major role in She-Hulk, which I think the tie-in of that is going to be pretty wild. So
which is hilarious because it's something we all kind of expected from the moment they announced a She-Hulk that was going to focus on
yeah,
her being a lawyer. So it was like,
yeah, exactly.
of
And they
course,
finally,
that's where you bring Daredevil in.
so this
And even if
whole,
you bring him before, that's when you make him a major player, I think, is as a lawyer.
oh yeah. Well, we know that we're getting Echo, and so the Kingpin, yeah, we can get a scene or two with him, but like that character arc now is just can be massive. So um I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, and I think the brilliant thing is superheroes in the past in various forms. I think with the exception of voice acting, there's always someone I feel like out of every superhero project that was really disgruntled with the fact that they took that role. But that doesn't seem to be the case much at all with the MCU. These folks, even go into the Netflix Marvel stuff, these folks just love being in these roles and they grow attached to these characters. So we could see, especially with the series, these 5 movies and they're out, or you got to pay him $28 billion to do like little roles. I think the Robert Downey Jr. thing was probably too much for what he did, but it got him in there.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to need that. Like Charlie Cox will show up for 15 minutes in every series, I think, because he loves playing Daredevil.
Yep.
Vincent D'Onofrio will show up for 2 episodes in every series because he loves playing Kingpin. So, and even now you see like Haley Steinfeld, like she is beyond talented. Same with Florence Pugh. Like they could be doing any roles they want, and they're choosing to be this. And I think with the series, they'll be around. Like Haley Steinfeld was doing this like right after doing, what was it, Dickens? So
Yeah.
she's like picking projects she wants to be part of, which is just amazing for someone her age that she can do that. Same with Pugh. So I love that they're choosing to do this. And it kind of speaks like with the production and how MCU is kind of treating them. I mean, there's a reason Kevin Feige was so upset with how Disney handled Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
And it's because he wanted Scarlett Johansson to be part of, and I guess now she's producing Marvel projects now. So she's not like she's out of the fold, but he wanted to do like one-off Black Widow. He wanted to make Black Widow the next James Bond.
Yeah.
Which he can do with Florence Pugh now, it seems.
She can do whatever the hell she wants. I'll watch her make toast and talk.
It is kind of brilliant, the star power they're attracting for these series. And that's why it's completely believable that Linda Cardinelli signs on to do Zoom scenes in the farm and not be a part of the greater action, because there's some real heart to the Barton story. And she's a giant part of that. The kids are a giant part of that. So just really, really great where the direction is going. Next episode. Do you have any idea what you think is going to happen? I know we've been saying you can't really predict these.
No, and I stopped guessing because the whole family is now hooked on the show. It's not just like a me thing. And it's not just a me and Zoe. Lauren is now watching it as well. So I'm just taking it. We're all going to sit down and watch it and see what happens at the same exact time. I'm just super pumped for what's to come. And the cool thing is watching it with 2 people who have no idea about the characters, the story, the comics, anything, just sitting there enjoying the shit out of the show. I love it. I'm loving every second of it. And the family bonding time over this series of this man trying to get home to his family has made it even better.
Yeah, I agree. Oddly enough, talking to my brother and sister-in-law before this, they started it last night. They watched the first 4 episodes, so they're about caught up. And one of the things Amanda had said was she was really glad they had like the flashbacks and the telling what had happened, because she is not like an MCU person. She's not seen everything. I think they were going to do the movie Saturday, but the only thing he wanted to see was the new Spider-Man. And she hasn't seen the first 2 Tom Holland Spider-Man. So like they've got to catch up on that to see it. So that's the level like of dedication. Like I think that's what's been really great about the MCU series is she's now watched them all, I think, except for What If, because you don't need to have seen all the movies. They tell you what you need to see. And if there's something you don't know, you're going to find out why something's important in these series. And I think that's been what's brilliant about Hawkeye is you can watch it with your family who's not big, because how much heart there is and just how well told. I mean, the endings of some of the series have been a little bit disappointing, but at least they're engaging and you can watch episode to episode without having the whole MCU in your mind?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's been just a really fun experience, and this is just one of those times where it's I don't know, it's just very accessible. There's not too much from like or what's up with that. It's just really accessible material.
Yeah, I agree. So I have no real predictions, but I'm going to ask you questions about, and I'm going to give you options what I think might happen, and you'll probably be wrong. I'll probably be wrong, but I think it'll be kind of fun to see where the series goes. And I know how much attention we have both been paying, but let's see if they can throw curveballs on us. So first one, who is under the Ronin suit that killed William Lopez? Was it Barton? Was it Clinton Barton? Was it Laura Barton? Was it Kazi? Or was it Yelena?
I really thought the nice turn would be Yelena, to be quite honest. I think it's Clint, but I think a fun arc would be Yelena.
I agree. I think Yelena, she was kind of my last minute addition because it felt like they were leaning towards it being Laura. And they also, I felt like, leaned that maybe it was Kazi. Like, is that why he wasn't at the meeting? Because he was at the meeting. But I
He
think
just doesn't. He's too like aloof in this. Like I don't know. He's just not what I thought he'd be. Like he doesn't scream murderer to me in this show.
no, I think if anything, we'll see him kind of leading the Tracksuit Mafia in the Echo series.
Yeah.
And he might be more bitter because maybe he's in love with Maya Lopez. Maybe that's why he still says playing second fiddle, which is definitely something Runner questioned him on. And I think just the Yelena comment about the blood that Clint Barton has spilled just kind of made me think like, oh, but is the one he's trying to resolve in this series actually her as Ronin? I think it would have been silly if she was the Ronin character, but I think it still would have been a nice twist, even if it doesn't make the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, a widow as Ronin, like that's
Yeah, you hire a widow to be a widow. But at
yeah,
the same time, like if you're trying to frame Clint Barton,
right.
that would be something completely different. It's just weird that she's seen the picture of Clint as the Ronin.
I feel like much of this is him carrying the weight of that though. Like, it's I feel like it'd be odd if it wasn't him because so much of what we know of him as for that period of time that was never explained till this show was that's where so much of his guilt and PTSD comes from. So if it's not him, it's just that almost be a letdown for me, I guess.
All right, next question I have for you, and this is not necessarily for the series, although the series is going to be one of these answers. And I'm going to word this very specifically because you have seen the new Spider-Man and I have not. So, do we see Charlie Cox's Daredevil for the first time in the Disney Plus series here in Hawkeye, in Echo? Do we not get her until She-Hulk? I think those are the only three options I'm giving you. So remember, I said in the Disney Plus series, not the MCU as a whole.
I'm trying to think what's to come next. We have Echo. Is She-Hulk right after Echo?
I think She-Hulk's right after Echo. I don't remember the timeline because She-Hulk might be before Echo. I don't know which one's. She-Hulk's definitely in production right now. I don't know if Echo was already in production before
and
that.
Moon Knight's before both of those, I believe.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. Let's add Moon Knight too. I forgot about the Moon Knight. Moon Knight might become before both of them. I don't think they've announced exact dates for any of these yet, but
they've also juggled it so freaking much. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
In terms of Disney Plus stuff, I don't think we'll see him as Daredevil until She-Hulk. But I think we could see him in other avenues just here and there leading up to it. Like he's going to be the MCU attorney kind of thing, which is the angle they're going to take in She-Hulk. These people are always getting in trouble and need a lawyer. So I could see him showing up in Echo. I don't know the order shit, but in Echo, with Kate or something like that too. I don't think we'll see him in the Hawkeye series.
It would be a lot to introduce him already, which is why I think
it just doesn't make sense right now for it. Unless he comes in and joins a fight at the end and everybody's like, well, what the fuck? But that would I feel like would mess things up. It'd be a bit messy. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a mention of him either in the episode, or I have a feeling that we're gonna have end credit scenes with this one. Because I think that they're also who was the guy who played Punisher? Jay
John
Baruchel.
Berthal.
John Baruchel, yeah, Jay Baruchel's comedian. Yeah, he's also clamoring to like come back, and I've heard rumblings of that too. So I feel like these.
Well, and he said point blank he would come back as long as they didn't water down the character.
Yeah,
and I feel like you don't go out and say that when you're promoting a movie you did with Will Smith, unless there's talks. So,
and that's because I saw that recently. So I'm like, it's either going to be a Daredevil or Punisher like cliffhanger. Or it's not. It's another Julia Louis-Dreyfus appearance.
It could be all three of them. So
it could be shit, yeah. But no, I don't think that we'll get a Daredevil appearance until, well, She-Hulk or Echo, whichever one's coming first right now. I've taken so many cold meds that I don't even think I could read it if I tried right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. We might get a mention of him, but I feel like, especially with Vincent D'Onofrio and the fact that they have not been clear whether or not the Netflix Defender stuff is canon or not. I feel like
I've heard that they are not, that they are, we're getting a reimagining, so to speak.
Yeah, and I've heard kind of that they are, and I've heard they kind of are, but selectively. So it'll be interesting how that goes. But I think just the fact that we've already gotten D'Onofrio in this series and Maya Lopez, I feel like we get Matt Murdock and Daredevil in the Echo series for sure. It's just whether or not it comes before She-Hulk.
What I will say is like follow all of their Twitter, because that's how I found out everything. Like Disney, now that they are Thanos when it comes to film studios, they have everything. There's no longer wait and see, we're gonna dangle this. And I'm not spoiling Spider-Man by saying this. I'm just saying that it's what you see is what you get kind of shit now. So it's like the same Easter eggs, it's just here's this is what we're doing because we can. And I think we're going to start seeing that in more projects now. So I feel like the guessing game is kind of over at this point of, if on Twitter somebody says, hey, I'm going to be in this, they're probably going to be in it, So the D'Onofrio stuff, he started that over the summer, like, yep, looking to come back, all this shit. And sure enough, here he is, So it's Charlie Cox too, when asked, hey, are we going to see you again over Disney? Yep. So they're not even hiding it anymore. So we know we're getting them. I just, I can't think of where a proper place to insert Daredevil at this moment is, but I can think of where a proper place to bring in him as an attorney fits. So that's the Murdoch experiment at the moment for me.
Yeah, well, and just for some clarification, She-Hulk is listed as 22 with no date. Echo has no year right now, and it is in pre-production, and
it is in pre. I was trying to find that earlier, if it was pre or post production, like if they were working on it simultaneously, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's in pre-production, and she is the only one announced so far for the cast. Whereas, how Marvel handles that, not everyone's going to be announced unless they've already announced it. Yep. So right now you've got Mussolini, Ruffalo, Jamel, who I remember being announced for it, but I forgot that she was going to be in that. Tim Roth. So you have like a cast starting to fill out on that, but more obviously will be listed.
I'm wondering if maybe after the finale we will see more, because it's kind of like if somebody's listed, then we know they don't die, that kind of stuff. So we've seen them do that with certain projects that have tie-ins, especially early on with the Avengers movies. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a larger cast list, say Friday morning, I guess.
Yeah, but Marvel's really, really good at that. If you look at the main IMDb for just the Hawkeye series, from the beginning, the only two listed were Brenner and Haley Steinfeld for the full series as 6 episodes. And then everyone else is updated as they show up.
Which is really cool. I love that approach.
Like the third billing now is Florence Pugh.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't even show up until the 3rd episode. So it was just interesting, or the 4th episode, really. So it's good how they do it. They're not releasing whole cast, and you're not seeing like Yelena could have been a character in 1 episode, but she wasn't. But like we didn't know that until we see those other episodes, which I don't feel like I'm spoiling to say that much to what some of the people on the internet thought, she is not done in the series. She is definitely in the preview for the final episode. So
I mean, she's the future of the MCU. Like, let's be real here, because she can move in every timeline. So, yeah, I'm excited for what she's gonna do.
yeah. All right, last nonsense prediction. At the end of the series, does Kate end up going off with Jack Duquesne and then forming their "we've been burnt by Eleanor" family? Is she going to the farm with the Bartons? Is she running off with Elena? Or
LA
could be LA? Or do we find out her father's alive and has been maybe trapped by Kingpin because of a money issue, and they're reunited and she just goes off to live with Derek Bishop?
I hope not. I like when dead people stay dead. I want to see her in LA. I just think it's too early. She goes to Clint, and she has Christmas letter night and movie night with the Bartons, and some sort of catastrophic thing occurs, I think. To end, I don't think we're going to end on a positive note. Yeah, he'll be home with the family, but I don't think this thing ends positively. Yeah. Although with the Christmas theme they're going for, I could see how they would, because it fits with the camp that they've adopted. So I hope that Grills is also joining them. And I know that I said he was going to die before, but I kind of don't want to see that happen.
Yeah, we have been all about, like, once Grills is introduced, him dying. But now that it's the final episode and the goal is that Barton's got to make it to the farm for Christmas, even if he's making it Christmas Day,
I think Grills is driving.
Grills can't die now. Like, he's driving the series.
Yeah,
that's what he's doing. I mean, that moment where she's like, yes, Grills is cool and lists everything he can do.
Yeah.
Either that was an affirmation that this character's around for at least another series, or he's dying, and I can't decide which one it is, but they've built this as a Christmas series. It's even on the Disney Plus banner of, like, getting the Christmas spirit or anything. It's now like one of the banner features for the Christmas. You can't kill Grills in the last episode.
Well, I now want a Grills and Darcy team up at some point. That's what I've come to realize after the last episode. So I'm like, how cool would that be? And
I'd just feel like any character we love, we now want to pair with Darcy. So
yeah. I just think it'd be so fun to have the dialogue, and we know team ups are coming, so I'm all about it. The one thing I need to see, and I think this makes Zoe's day, is if we see some bloody footprints from Lucky. It needs to happen, that iconic cover, even if it's just the title screen.
Agreed, which I think was one of the most ridiculous things I saw was, I hate end credits, but I'm watching to make sure there's no end or mid credits in these. And I saw someone like, oh, Kingpin gets a second reveal in the mid credits scene. And I'm like, what? And they just meant the fact that there was a giant Kingpin picture in the credits. And I'm like, that's not a fucking scene. And that's just the credits. And they've done awesome things throughout the credits of this series completely. Yeah. So that's not a mid credit scene, folks. And I hate that I just defended what a mid credit scene is, because I don't want them. I think we're going to get probably both a mid and an end credit scene in this. And I'm less upset about it than in the other series, because I do think you're right. I think we're going to get a happy ending in this series, and then we're going to set things up that are less happy in the credit scenes, which
I think for the mid credit, we're going to get a shawarma level humor. And I think for the end credit, we're going to get a, oh, what the fuck now?
Yeah. I think I thought from the beginning that Clint was going to make it back to the farm for Christmas, but I kind of think that Laura's going to show up in New York City with the kids to save the day. And because of how open it's clear that Clint and Laura are, she's not met Grills, but I feel like she's going to show up and leave the kids with Grills, and Christmas is going to be in Grills' apartment.
I love that.
We'll get that happy ending, but maybe that's where we find out Derek hasn't been dead, and maybe that's why we find out his life is in jeopardy of Kingpin's. Maybe something happens to Maya to set up the Echo series. I mean, something's definitely happening to Maya in this to set up the Echo series, but maybe there's a more devastating end credit scene where her and Kingpin are talking and he details what happened, and we see her run away.
Yeah.
I think, we're definitely getting something devastating, at least one credit scene, if not two, to set up probably a Hawkeye season 2 and the Echo series, I think.
Yeah, I'm ready. And the Echo series was announced, then taken off, and then announced again. And so that's why I'm like wondering if they're wavering between Hawkeye season 2 or Echo, like where they're going to go with it. Because at that time when they revealed all those titles and stuff, they've since reworked it, changed release dates, re-signed actors, renegotiated contracts, shifted everything around. So I'm wondering if, much like Loki, which wasn't supposed to have a season 2, they're kind of looking at the results of this one of what do we want to do? Because if you remember, they rewrote Loki, what's the episode 3, was it, or 4, where all of a sudden, hey, we need a season 2. And that's when the writer's like, all right, cool, I'm done after this.
Yeah, and even then, there's still, I guess, multiple endings they wrote for
right.
Loki. Multiple
So
endings I believe they filmed for.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of wondering if that's where we are with this one, why Echo isn't as confirmed as many of the other projects as well, especially in terms of like a release date. So I'm curious to see if it's just all smoke and mirrors, and then we either get the Hawkeye will be back thing or we don't, because that'll be a pretty good tell of what's to come.
Well, with the exception of WandaVision, and I don't remember What If exactly, but I know What If is part of the continuity, but What If's not part of the continuity.
Mm-hmm.
WandaVision, we didn't get it. We got confirmation like from scenes leading up to other projects that were already announced, but with Falcon and Winter Soldier, they announced Captain America 4 shortly after it finished.
Yep.
Loki, they announced season 2 right at the end of Loki. So it does feel like we're getting an announcement that hasn't already been announced after this one. So I feel like that'll be a Hawkeye 2 since Echo's already announced, but that doesn't mean they won't set up still for the Echo series. And then you could just be like, maybe the feel good credit doesn't exist. Maybe the mid credit is going to be a devastating one, and that sets up Echo. And then there's a slightly less devastating one as the end credit that just ends with Hawkeye 2 coming 2024. It's interesting. Who knows exactly what's going to happen? Hence the fact that I had some pretty ridiculous options. Like, I would love to see a Jack and Kate series. It's not happening.
Right.
But I would love to see. I think it would be ridiculous to watch the two of them. I think they had chemistry, whether she was feeling warm feelings to him or not. There's definitely chemistry between the two of them.
I don't think we're done with them yet.
Oh, no. I think if there's a Hawkeye 2, he's in Hawkeye 2. I don't think it'll be like the two of them. But it could be interesting because we know how skilled of a swordsman he is in this series. Like, she brought it up with the fencing. So could we be completely wrong about her going to the Barton farm and still being mentored by Clint or mentored by Yelena, and she just ends up mentored by the swordsman, and we kind of get that backstory because a lot of things they're doing is flipping the two Hawkeyes.
Well, I'm usually wrong about all of it, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, the trick is just say every possibility you could possibly think of, and then you're at least partially right at all times.
I think my name would then be "We Got This Covered."
Yeah. We would still be better than We've Got It Covered because we at least admit we admit we're throwing things at the wall here.
True.
And I mean, we mockingly named the segment about prediction, about all the bad predictions. So
Indeed.
Last thing scene I really want to talk about, because I think this was one of the most important scenes, was Clint talking to the memorial.
Yeah.
And I thought like the most telling thing was when he walked up the memorial before he started talking and he turned off the hearing aid to make that talk. But at that same time, I found it ridiculous that he was disturbed at the urinal. He was recognized at dinner with his kids. But when he's talking to a memorial that's partially commemorating himself, no one approaches him. In New York fucking city where you can't do anything without being approached. Like, come on.
I guess symbolic for tuning out all the noise.
Yeah, I guess people just knew they couldn't hear him, that he turned off his hearing aid, even though it had not been mentioned yet in the MCU that he had a hearing aid. So, but I thought it was just a really great and touching moment. I thought Jeremy Renner had done a lot with his face throughout this whole series. But no more than there. And then when him and Lucky are on the couch at Grills and he basically falls asleep sitting up. I thought those two scenes, like Renner killed it with his face. Like he was just so good with those facial expressions, and you can just tell how everything's weighing on him there.
Yeah, I think just his acting's really on display in this whole series, unlike it's been in anything else.
Yeah, I think I knew I liked Renner as Hawkeye because I like Hawkeye, and I thought his not getting much kind of was fitting for Avengers Hawkeye stuff because there are oftentimes he's pushed to the backside, but being able to see him just have room to actually act has been good. I feel like I'm a guy who cries every time they're on Volmir and they fight over who's going to sacrifice themselves.
Oh yeah.
But had we ever been able to see any of these facial expressions or hear him talk about Nat the way he does in this series, about the way he feels about who he is, the weapon who's just trained to take out people, had we gotten any of this before we got that scene, it would have been such an exponentially bigger gut punch to see.
Yeah.
Because we had Nat be in the heart of the series since her introduction, basically, but Brenner was her friend who we knew had a great relationship, but it was never developed. But we get the Black Widow, we get the tic-tac-toe stuff. And they were there, what was it, 2 weeks they said they were there in that tunnel?
Yep.
And now we're seeing just like how much the loss affected him. Like that stuff means so much more than her knowing about the secret farm and her wearing an arrow necklace. Those were kind of effective. Like they showed the friendship, but had we been able to get half of what we got in the series about the two of them,
oh yeah,
those two being together and then fighting over that sacrifice would have meant so much more. And I think the Nat sacrifice was huge and significant, but how much more significant would it be if we saw how much they both meant to each other to this extent instead of having to just get hints at it? Then we'd be like, well, fuck yeah. Anyone who likes to think of themselves as a good person and a great friend would have been like, well, shit, of course I would sacrifice myself so my friend can go home to his family. Like,
right.
And that was all there, but it wasn't there at the extent it could have been. And I don't want to say it's anyone's fault. Like we didn't have Disney Plus at that time
to save us.
When this was in development, like Jeff Loeb was still running Marvel TV, and it was a different branch. And at the time, it probably felt like the smart idea for Marvel. Just like at the time, selling off all their big characters was probably the right idea too, with the bankruptcy and everything. But
oh god, yeah.
It just it would be a different world if things could have played out in a perfect way. But Feige's a tinker, so who knows? Maybe they give ScarJo the bag to come back so we can see a 3-minute return in the future with Renner. Like,
I'm good with her being gone at this point. Let sleeping dogs lie. But I didn't really enjoy them bringing the movie in after she died. I get the reason for it, but one of my biggest complaints, even in comic books, has always been like, you know, if you're going to take somebody through this emotional journey, let it end there, because I know that characters never are really dead, but I'm one of those people where if I'm invested in the character's no longer there, I make amends and I move on. So for me, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, what was the old saying? No one in comic books stays dead except for Uncle Ben and the second Robin. And of course, one of those two is alive and very much a big part of the Batman world. So, some of the stuff that when they do it right, and you can see the guilt that Bruce Wayne feels over letting that Robin die, it's great. But most of the time, like, it's just they're fighting over the fact that one kills and the other doesn't. So it's not nearly as emotional as it should be. And I feel like obviously there's so many alternate timelines where Uncle Ben is alive, which is fine because they're alternate timelines, not bring them back to the main continuum. But it's one of those things, like, I know you hate the X-Men Kuroko stuff, like, and the resurrection stuff is kind of awful. And it's, which is a shame because I've been reading some of the series, and like Excalibur is a little bit too mystic, but the Excalibur series has always been a little bit mystic. But I thought the Marauders with Kate Pryde was a great series that was kind of hurt by having to tie into the Kuroko stuff and like
Oh, yeah.
X of Swords. And it's interesting that there's really, even the X Factor run, which was cut short at only 10 episodes, is really great. Like, oh, if you're going to have this like resurrection protocol, like, yes, you need a team to investigate deaths. Like, duh. But I feel like it's all ultimately hampered by the fact that there's this overarching thing they have to service.
Yep.
Kind
Every
of like,
single time.
and I guess like they work as a team. They do call themselves the X team of, so that's fine. It's not quite like Chuck Dixon getting fired from Nightwing and Robin because he's not following Grant Morrison's outline, which is the most ridiculous thing because I think of Nightwing and Robin. I think of Chuck Dixon. He wrote the Robin like minis. He was a longtime writer on both series, and then he's just gone one day because he didn't like Grant Morrison's overall arc. It didn't want the characters he was in control of to write it. And so IDW did the smart thing and scooped him up and put him in charge of the G.I. Joe franchise.
Oh, yeah.
Which now they're losing the rights to. So
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it goes these days.
yeah, well, especially those properties like
Yeah.
And good for Robert Kirkman for pursuing getting the rights to those for his imprint on Image. Like,
yeah,
I don't want him writing them, but the fact that he loves these franchise means hopefully he's going to put some young creative blood on there.
oh yeah,
Some good stuff. I'm not going to read them because I really don't care about G.I. Joe or Transformers, but for the fans, I want something good to come out of that. So
yeah.
Anything else you have before we get out of here?
No, just if you've seen Spider-Man, remember many of your friends have not. So just stay quiet on it still and just let them enjoy these things. I had countless people after I saw it, like, hey, does this happen? Does this happen? And I said, I'm not telling you anything. Just sit down and enjoy it. And really just stop trying to find out what happens and see it for yourself.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I won't give the headline, but I have seen a couple like headlines that they're trying not to be spoilery.
They have no chill at this point.
But it's like, I get that you're not trying to be spoilery, but like hinting at something that happened to talk about it in your article hints that it can happen. And like, I'm not going to think that you're making a wrong guess after you've seen the movie about your hint. So it's unfortunate. Thankfully, nothing that's going to ruin the experience for me, but you know me, like if you gave me the plot right now, I would go in and watch it for what it does and enjoy it. I'm glad you have not. I am glad that no one has been very explicit about spoilers. I'm also glad that I only really use Twitter for sports. So I'm not getting Twitter spoilers.
I usually only have a 2-week rule for myself before talking about things. But with this one, I mean, like, I know for a fact in my area, especially with limited seating and stuff like that, like people haven't even had a chance to go to the movies because of being sold out and shit like that. And people bought like 4 showings right off the bat just because they thought they'd want to see it like that, which takes it away from other people and stuff. So this is the first time where I'm like, we may be in the 3rd week and people still haven't had a chance to see it because of work schedules, sold out shows, like everything. So it's a movie that's like Gravity. I don't know.
For me, it's going to be the COVID concern. I'm not going to see it probably until like the end of the 1st week of January, if not later. So for those waiting for us to get to the episode on it, like it's going to be a bit because I understand that they believe this latest strain of COVID, this variant, is less harmful, less severe, but it is also more contagious at a rate that's insane. I know read an article about the fact that after 30 days, this strain will have 65 times the number of people catch it. And ultimately, when you have that many more people catching it, it's still going to fill hospital beds. So be safe. So I'm going to wait because I'm going to make sure it's like near empty theater before I go. Because I'm very much, if I'm grocery shopping, if I'm in a mall, I'm wearing my mask, even though I'm vaccinated. But I can't wear my mask and eat my popcorn at the same time. So that's...
I've told everybody if it wasn't for me having a private showing, I wouldn't have seen it yet. So I'm right there with you.
So don't feel shame if you're like me and you're waiting. That's actually the smart thing. I thought, even though like it sucks for Paul Rudd to get his 5-timer club membership on SNL in an empty studio on a mostly prepped up show, it was the right move. I think the NBA canceling games, even though like everything's booked up and it's going to be hard to reschedule, Same with the NHL. Right move. I think the fact that the leagues are trying to change the rules where if you're vaccinated and you're test positive, you could still play. I think that's crazy. But people
They
love
have
their
their own
sports, I guess.
doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just insane. So stay safe, folks.
At the end of the day, that's all you can do, or at least try to do, I guess. Myself will be having yet another rapid test tomorrow, given the symptoms raging through my house at the moment. So at least I'm now home because my employer has also made the right decision to have us work remotely for the time being because of everything going on. So
yeah, unfortunately, and I won't mention the store. And obviously I won't mention the person I saw, but a person I'm friendly with who works is a higher up in a chain mentioned how the stores have record sales and so they're not going into quarantine anytime soon. And I like that he mentioned the commentary, but it's unfortunate that is a sad truth. Like retail took losses last year, so now that so many of them are hitting these records, they're gonna stay in their loss because they don't want to keep losing market to Amazons and Walmarts and Targets. Yeah. And I, to an extent, I get that, but we are the richest nation in the world. We should be able to supplement that.
Yeah, I agree.
Give you and I more money and then we can have more podcasts, because you only have like 15 projects you're working on right now.
Only. Yeah, and we'll be back for Battle of the Ballots tomorrow, pending my death. If I sound like death, it's because I feel like death, but I love these Monday night talks. And to be quite honest, because I have limited my access to seeing people and talking to people, this is the highlight of my week because I don't talk to anybody. So yeah, man, another solid episode.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to talk to you tomorrow. And I'm excited to get a text from you at 7:30 in the morning on Wednesday when you watch Hawkeye before I've decided to roll out of bed.
Yeah. Given that I'm now working remotely too, I will try to refrain from earlier than 7:30, but given that I get up at 5, we'll see what happens.
Well, what's funny is I get out at 5 here, but I do not get out of bed before I have to. On days I don't work, I get the nieces. I try to get up and see them about 8 o'clock. So I might have to get up a little bit earlier so I can catch this Hawkeye before.
Well, my biggest downfall is that I have a lot of early riser friends who are not comic book fans and some who aren't even MCU fans. They just watch the series. And so then I get a text like, hey, so what's up with this? And it's like, well, I haven't seen it yet. Like I had Kingpin ruined for me because somehow I didn't watch the episode early enough, even though I watched it right after taking my morning piss. So yeah, so I have to be on the ball, unfortunately.
Yeah. How dare someone ruin a grainy picture of Kingpin for you?
Correct. All right, my friend. I will see you tomorrow for Battle of the Ballots.
Yeah, let's shout out Gary B first before we get out of here, though.
Gary B, the casual comic guy who has spread more love on this platform than I think anybody possibly can, and his constant push to get people more followers. And he started his channel as a means of showing his son that you can do whatever you believe in, and he wanted to show him that he could get to 1,000 subscribers and spread some love with comic books, and he's done just that. So awesome stuff.
Yeah, big props to Gary B. And of course, catch us on many other things. Out of the Panel Comics for you, when I guess I'm there too.
Yeah.
And Cool Points for me, substack.com/cool points. So we will talk to you guys next week as we wrap up Hawkeye before we probably take a 2 or 3 week break and get into Spider-Man and then see where we go from there, because we don't have the steady stream of
Peacemaker.
shows we want. And yeah. Is Peacemaker going to be a weekly, or are they going to do it a dump all at once?
I originally read weekly, and I hope they stick to that. But if not, I'd go week to week with it because I don't know. I guess we'll see. But I'm excited for it nonetheless.
Yeah, and I know HBO Max has done it various different ways. They've done a dump, they've done weekly, and they've also done clumps where they do 2 or 3 episodes a week. But I feel like it's only 6 episodes, right? So we'll probably do weekly, and I think that's the way to do it. I think, especially heading forward with the comic book stuff, with the exception of Netflix, everything's going to do weekly. So
yeah,
which would be great for us. More content time. So
absolutely. All right, my friend.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Yes, sir.